All right, folks, welcome back to Rap Roll Call.
What's up?
Welcome back to Rap Roll Call.
Welcome back to Rap Roll Call. Yep.
1, 2, 3.
All right, so a couple of days ago, Tim and I were kind of talking about what are our catchphrases. Apparently, Tim's catchphrase is here's
the thing.
Here's the thing. Apparently, my catchphrase, unbeknownst to me, is "Hey folks." So I went back and I watched every episode of Rap Roll Call, and apparently, that is my catchphrase. Hey folks. So hey folks, welcome back to Rap Roll Call. We got a special episode for you guys today.
Another special?
Another special. We got our first guest on the show. This is Alex.
Hey everybody, I'm Alex.
He's got a podcast.
I have a podcast, so I am one of the hosts of Accidentally Fasting. We also have a website, accidentallyfasting.com. It's just a bunch of funny stuff that you can go look at and listen to. So, yeah, thank you for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming
Yeah.
on. Yeah.
I was on Accidentally Fasting the other night.
That's a lie.
That's the truth, actually. Check out Egg Roll Call.
We and you can listen to the episode that Miles was the guest host of on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, Anchor.fm, and on the website accidentallyfasting.com.
Yeah, check it out. It's super cringy and fun. Right?
Yep.
Yeah. Maybe you don't agree.
No, it was a really good episode.
Yeah,
I
good.
think we did a
All
good
right,
job,
cool.
yeah.
Well, on this week's Rap Roll Call, we're gonna
What do we have lined up?
chat with Alex about
This is like the inaugural
yeah,
guest.
right. Yeah,
Oh,
this is
man.
weird. The
That's
threesome.
pressure.
There we
That's
go.
fucking pressure.
I guess the vague kind of topic idea was underground rap.
Underground rap.
I feel like you have sort of a specific, I don't know, like niche within the hip hop world.
I feel like I did up until recently.
Okay.
You know, because
Yeah.
everybody retired. Everybody that I listened to is done. You know, Bus Driver put out his 10th album and called it quits. He,
Mm-hmm.
you know, announced he's retiring. Milo's done. No Can Do. They're all from that same group. I mean, I don't know where you guys where do we start?
So I guess I have to wind the clock back because
Uh-huh.
I guess what is underground hip hop? It sounds like, I mean, you're coming at this from like truth be told, we literally met 25-ish minutes ago.
Yeah.
True.
So, like, maybe, how do we frame that out? Because I feel like I've been listening to underground hip hop for like 20 plus years.
At one
now.
point, Wu-Tang was underground hip hop.
Yeah, but they weren't by the time what I was listening to, where it was just anything for me. I mean, I'll start this off then with like the rough. It was if it was being sold in any kind of mainstream music store, if anybody was listening to it on the radio, if anybody who knew what it was but was just sort of the like common folk, and you knew they weren't like digging in the crates or going to the place or had the tapes from the people that weren't being talked about, then that shit was not underground. And there were names that you'd kind of toss around here and there and people would give you the nod of like, yeah, I know what's up. Or like, I have no fucking idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So I guess for me, that's like, I guess where it starts off. And I mean, all the people you just named off definitely tick all of those boxes, especially Bus Driver.
So I think the way to fine tune that terminology is to go with art rap, right? I mean,
Yeah, definitely.
Like that's what I would call it. Like not necessarily underground because I'm not an expert by any means in any worldwide underground scene. I think that I have been paying attention very closely to the LA art rap scene, like recently Hellfire Club, which is also defunct now.
All right.
I mean, but there's a lot of shit going down, right? Low End Theory fizzled out with the whole sexual abuse thing that happened, and
Right.
people torn both ways, and I really think out of that group, you know, I mean, that was like the third or fourth incarnation of the LA's art rap scene, I guess, and it was expanding into other stuff. But really, I mean, my I guess listening sphere or whatever you would call it starts with. So I started listening to Bus Driver in like 2006.
Okay.
So like Project Blowed was a big thing for him, and you know, really like kind of what we were talking about before the video, like Milo, Open Mic, No Can Do was a member of those guys. One of the albums that recently came out that I thought was really cool was more of a poetry album from the student named Jerry Quickly, and Bus Driver produced it, and it was a really cool, like almost Lynchian hip hop type of yeah, because
This guy loves David Lynch.
I'm a big
All right.
David Lynch fan.
So it's like you're listening to Eraserhead.
It's like you're I guess that's a good
Or
Wild
wait. What's
Wild
it?
at Heart?
Wild at Heart.
Yeah.
Wild
It's cool.
Stallions.
It might-
Jesus.
So yeah, like Jerry Quickly, really cool shit. He's a journalist and poet, and I don't know how those guys got hooked up, but it's really interesting stuff. It's cool stuff that everybody should listen to.
So, do you have something? I got more.
So art rap,
Yeah.
like how do we define art rap for somebody that might not know what that is? Because that's the term I've always loosely applied to like Open Mic Eagle and
JPEG
Milo, JPEG
Yeah.
Mafia. Who's the other guy?
Well, I mean, back in the day, there was a lot more, you know, like, yeah, I think it all stemmed from Project Bloat and like we were talking about before, Freestyle Fellowship. Like, the guys in that community, in the Good Life community in LA, you know, I think Bus Driver was the first person to really be at the forefront of art rap. Like, I think that he was the guy, like, if you listen to Milo, he's like, Bus Driver was my favorite rapper, and he really carried it, I think, closer back to the mainstream. And the same thing with Open Mic, because those guys were all part of Hellfire Club, right? No Can Do's label that he wanted to start,
Right.
and there were a bunch of producers involved with that were really cool.
So I just want to really quick, like, pause this. So when we're talking like art rap, are we? Because I know that like Open Mic talks about himself as like art, like he uses that term, and like, you know, hip hop has not gone down that same weird like route that like rock has, where it's just like mathcore, metalcore, midcore. Like they don't have that. So when we say art rap, are we talking about things where people take sort of like avant-garde approaches to things, or like create characters? So I'm saying this, would we throw somebody like Cool Keith as Dr. Octagon into that world from like circa 90, you know, whatever that was, 96, with Dr. Octagon Ecologist? Like that was a very like concept fueled album, and like, you know, the people he had working on that were, you know, going in that world as well, where it's like, okay, and he plays Black Elvis, like he has sort of these different personas that he like takes on. So with that,
I mean, it's the same thing with Dell.
yeah, there you go.
And Deltron.
Yeah, Deltron 3030.
Like, is it this like conceptual, like kind of like characterized or like caricature kind of thing, or is it like a specific thing like sonically or lyrically that makes it art rap?
So 2009, Bus Driver's album Jelly Bean came out, and it was his first collaboration with No Can Do. And that duo later became Flashbang Grenada, and Dell was on their first album, 10 Haters. I don't know if Jelly Beam itself was the first time that term was coined. Bus Driver has a song called Art Rap, and it is like really just sort of avant-garde beats, time signatures, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's probably open-ended enough that you could throw anything you wanted to it.
All right.
I'm not sure, and I'm not the person,
No, I mean, I was
define
not
that,
like,
yeah.
oh, please
Yeah.
give to everyone.
Right,
Right now, the authority is.
Yeah.
But I mean, because I think of like somebody like
I would include Cool Keith and Dell in that. Yeah.
Aesop Rock as well for me on like that, especially like, well, I mean, hell, even now, like, but early on, just sort of, he's maybe still rapping in a typical time signature, but like he's definitely not going, his, rhymes and stories are pretty avant-garde. Like they're taking people to a very different place than you're going to tune into anything on the radio.
Yeah.
So, sorry to derail maybe what we were going for earlier, but like, yeah.
I think that all falls into play in this sort of greater cloud that is, well, I mean, and art rap is such a broad term, right? Because now we've got the cloud rap stuff that came out of Vaporwave, and that shit is like very similar to like mid 2000s art rap, right?
Yeah.
Like early Mike Eagle with like qualifiers and shit like that. Like, I don't know if I would call that cloud rap, but it's definitely.
I mean, cloud
similar.
rap is often totally mixed up and kind of undistinguishable from mumble rap now too, the way that term is used.
Yeah.
I mean, when I think cloud rap, the first name that pops in my head is
I think
Trav
Young
Scott.
Lean. I think Young Lean or ASAP Rocky.
Oh, okay. I think Trav Scott, but
Yeah, well, I think it's such a. I mean, these like you were saying, like you don't really have defined genres with rap in the same way you do with rock, and like, I mean, to me, cloud rap is like Bandcamp circa like 5 years ago, right? When Vaporwave was hitting it super fucking hard, and there's no one distinguishable that I can think of, right? But I mean, every opinion is valid. Like that's just That's kind of how I see cloud rap specifically,
right?
So I have a question on that, and this is one that like or a nuanced version of it that I have with a lot of people. Because it's not genre defined, and there aren't things that are defined. And I mean, we've discussed this a lot, but like, now you can just go get things wherever, and you can make things. Technology has allowed anybody, you can be a producer, I could be a producer. And is there more of an open window for people to just kind of like scoot in on this and call themselves an artist who are faking the funk?
Unpracticed.
Yeah, I mean, and are just trying, like, actually have no soul and are trying to, like, get in there and, like, and without sounding cynical, will, like, the real artist sort of survive that? And I mean, I realize that's kind of a heavy.
No, I think that's a really it's a valid point today. I mean, like there's a hardcore set of vapor waivers that believe that you can only steal your samples, you can only use Audacity and its built-in effects and stuff like that to make the music. So it has to be free software and all this stuff. And I think that there is, because technology makes it easier for you to appear to be creative if you aren't, it does make it harder for real artists. I mean, and I struggled with that. I mean, I'm a producer and have been, playing shows around town, or had been, from 2009 through 2014.
Right.
And it was very difficult to distinguish someone who spent hours and hours making music in their garage or basement or whatever from the people who show up and play whatever track they found on SoundCloud that was back in the day, like totally free to download and Creative Commons and shit like that.
Right.
And, not to say there's anything wrong with that, like a lot of my time playing shows was combating that sort of stigma that people have towards an artist who may not be classically trained in the ways of creating music. But to me, if it sounds good, then I don't know, maybe it's worth listening to.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, but is it worth it to invest the time in creating music that one would when it wasn't so easy to do so? I don't know. I can't,
Right.
I quit making music, right? I was producer for like,
Honestly, everything is fair game now because it is such an open-ended like market, or I don't know, the structure within different genres or subgenres of hip hop or rock or electronic music, they're very forgiving, at least gaining an audience, regardless of your skill, your talent, or your experience or whatever, because it is, this sort of thing. If it sounds good or it's appealing to a specific audience, like we were talking about YouTube earlier, it's going to gain attention or garner attention, regardless of whatever effort you did or didn't put into it. But then, when it gets put in a box or categorized, and analyzed under the lens of that specific subgenre or microgenre, that's where the critique or criticism comes in. So
no, I think that's a really valid point. Like, I think that's and that kind of segues into
you're gonna face that no matter what. You're gonna have the audience that likes you because you're in this niche or whatever. But because you're in that niche, there's also people on the other side that are like, well, how well does his music fit this? Like you were saying about Vaporwave, did he meet all these very specific criteria that we expect from artists in this subgenre?
Yeah. And that's an argument across all genres of music, right? I mean, if you talk to a hardcore jazz aficionado, there's 4 things, right, that qualify a type of music as jazz. And one of them is it has to be improvised. So Charles Mingus, this massive, monumental jazz musician, is not considered by some to actually be jazz because he wrote a lot of his music.
Right.
But no, the last Bus Driver album that came out, Electricity Is on Our Side, is his statement saying this is fine art. Hip hop is fine art.
Right.
We can rise above like the canned corporate music that has been created and stuff, and really just showcase meaningful and valid emotional whatever that stuff is that you would showcase. I don't know.
So as somebody that isn't like primarily like a hip hop listener or like invested in hip hop culture as like your primary like focus or lifestyle or whatever, what is it about art school rappers or Bus Driver, Milo, etc. in particular that appeals to you?
I guess
like what brings you into that world from everything else?
I have always enjoyed music that is pushing boundaries in whatever way, right? Like I mean, that's kind of like just what appeals to me. Like if I listen to metal, like I really like Meshuggah because they do like really interesting stuff, right? Like
is that like a more like technical kind of metal? I don't know shit about metal. Dude.
Yeah, no, that's cool. No, Meshuggah Chaos Sphere is the best place to start.
Okay.
So it's very odd time signatures, very technical.
Okay, yeah.
And it doesn't have to be technical, right? I mean, there are bands that
they're kind of like held up here too on like an echelon of like
or maybe
handling.
Mastodon, right? Mastodon does very epic, like, and they're pushing some boundaries, but not as many, I think.
Right.
Meshuggah.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that I listen to Meshuggah nonstop, which sometimes I do. But I mean, it's that genre bending, that sort of prompting thought, right? I mean, like classical music, like a lot of like really intelligent classical music. That's a bad way to say that, but so I guess the best way to sum this, the feeling that I look for in any kind of art is it's unexpected. I don't like the pattern driven. I mean, it's enjoyable and it all has its time and place. The majority of the art that we experience is going to be pattern driven. But what I look forward is listening to something, especially musically, because time is is like the primary factor in music. That has these unexpected elements that pop up through the song that you're listening to. And I think that like The Weather by Bus Driver and Daedalus is a really good album because it's jazzy and there's accordion and all this really weird stuff going on that you wouldn't expect from a hip hop album. And I don't mean to, keep talking Bus Driver nonstop. Like Milo's last album, it was really just a fantastic example of that, I think. Like, and there are a lot of mainstream rappers. Like, I mean, Eminem had a really cool way of laying down what he did vocally on a beat. Like, I mean, I'm not a huge Eminem fan. I don't know how you guys.
Neither of us are.
Yeah, you're fine. You're in good company.
But I'm just
get the fuck out of here right now. Yeah.
The fucking rap god, bro. The fucking rap god.
Well, that's right. There's the camera over there too.
Yeah.
So no, I mean I'm just mentioning like stuff like whether or not it's artistic, and that's another thing, right? You might be your art may be something that is totally corporate canned, and you still can have these elements of very high art inside of what you're doing. And I think that's just the way that some people make it, right? They have this like one gimmick, and it may be like it's really fine-tuned, classically trained music.
One-trick ponies.
Yeah.
So mainstream rap is just kind of set on a predictable.
I don't know. I'm
I don't
not.
know.
I mean, I think that I think we're treading into like weird waters here because driving over here, I was thinking about because I didn't quite know how this was going to go, and like when I think about somebody who's like very underground, and has always been in my life, that's LP, and like LP is like had this very bizarre track because he went from company flow to just doing his own solo shit to like producing with a lot of different people. But still making his own music to like now
mainstream phenomenon.
Yeah, he's like RTJ and Killer Mike. And what's interesting to me is that people are like highly, I think, attracted to his sound that he brings to it. But he's been bringing that sound to all of his previous 3 solo albums. Co-flow stuff, he was working with like Mr. Len, so like there was a different sound there. And even like Johnny escapes the hospital. Johnny out of the hospital. It's a fucking great. It's an instrumental album. It's funny because it's like a co-flow album, but it's clearly just LP going fucking bananas. But he's done this like bizarre, like nobody knew who he was, and then suddenly some asshat decided to put him like. Throw like an RTJ track on like probably a video game trailer somewhere. I mean, they even talk about how they like made that first album. Like he produced Killer Mike's rap music album,
right?
And then they were like, "Let's do this shit together because we like to smoke weed and we get along."
Yeah. Well, it's cool because I mean LP, I think produced Zach De La Rocha's unreleased album, right? And then Killer Mike was actually on the Aqua Teen Hunger Force movie soundtrack.
Yeah. Yep.
And
a lot of that stuff comes out of Adult Swim and the weird minds behind that shit. But is he one? So his shit is playable because it still hits that time signature that you want. Yeah. It's not. There's nothing too weird. There's nothing even too weird on his like solo stuff. But you're definitely never gonna hear anything off of like Cancer for the Cure,
right?
Like on the radio. But if you flip over and try to like some Bus Driver or some Open Mike Eagle or JPEG Mafia, then people's eardrums start to. I think they don't like weird 5/8 time, that's not something that people want to get down with, or like bizarre when you start pushing the edge of like what are you sampling, what are you actually like playing live in a studio, and
like to me that's a very specific part or a section of underground rap, right? There's like there's also like Brother Ali and Jedi Mind Tricks and like these other people who do.
Yeah, for me, when I was a kid, underground rap meant Immortal Technique, Jedi Mind Tricks, like anything not only outside of like radio play, but also outside of like normative or like the status quo of like I don't know.
Yeah.
The cultural
anything Rhymesayers was basically
Rhymesayers, Brother
not
Ali,
gonna get like
Atmosphere and Aesop. St. Francis,
So I mean, maybe.
But
like
then, like, did these artists become like? Did they escape the underground when they attract a mainstream audience? Because even at one point, Kendrick Lamar was categorized as an underground rapper.
Yeah.
And now he is. This put on this like plateau or this pedestal above all of the rap game.
But I think Kendrick brought that element of high art, right? I think that he's got he's so in tune with his emotions and honest that you know, you don't necessarily get that through a lot of. I think that like coming from where he came from and having to deal with like the death of all of his friends or whatever, you know, like this really just horrendous shit. And I'm interested to see what he does next because now he doesn't have the possibility to include that undergroundedness in his mainstream rap. Right?
Yeah.
He's now rich. He's now famous. He's a Nobel Prize winner.
Okay, let me back up. Sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but that's I think where my mind was going is like, can you like from RTJ could LP just drop back down and do that? Can Kendrick go back and like put out a Section 80? Like, can you like
Can Joey go back to 1999?
Yeah, can you turn back time on yourself and just kind of
back time.
We're gonna definitely cut that out.
Standing.
Probably. But yeah, is it possible to? Because I hear what you're saying, and I think I'm probably fascinated. Not probably. I'm fascinated at the idea. Could he just discard all of this, you know, what he has like brought together, and you know, he's sort of the face of a huge label now, and like just go back to.
Well, my opinion on Kendrick Lamar, right? Because I mean, to me, viewing it as an artist, like I can't see how he would be able to relate to the everyday person now that he has done everything that he's done and gained all of the fame and fortune that he has gained. Like that's my like looking at him, I'm like, could I hold my own as a real honest artist if success hit me so hard so quickly? That's my concern for that.
That goes back to that we had a video that we scrapped. We recorded like an hour of this Logic rant.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yep.
I try not to talk about Logic a lot on this channel, but it was the same sort of thing.
Yeah.
So his come up, what made him big and popular and like his like niche or focus was being an on the come up artist. Like that was his thing. That was his focus, was rapping from the point of view of somebody who's like this rags to riches. Like I'm trying to get there. I'm like young Sinatra, like I fucking work at Joe's Crab Shack, and like I want to be like all my idols, and like I'm like this Tarantino type that like copies and pastes everybody else's style, but like and now that he is this like worldwide fucking for whatever phenomenon, this super mainstream,
I don't know if I'd agree with that.
Well played artist for whatever reason, whatever got him there.
Right, yeah.
It's like, and he's still trying to rap from that perspective, and
he sounds preachy.
It sounds preachy.
Yeah.
He's not succeeding at that.
Well, I think once you start lying, right, about your nature, right, because I mean, art should be all about your honest sort of perception of your environment and stuff like that, and your experiences. And once you start lying about that, people can tell.
Right.
I mean, you can tell instantly, like, and that's exactly what I was saying about Kung Fu Kenny was like, is he going to be able to do that? Like, are these artists? And I think that that's when you throw in the towels. When if you really recognize that, you just got to say, look, I can't be honest anymore.
Right.
You know, I can't really bring anything valuable to the table.
Or I think the ulterior to that would be, Kendrick doesn't subscribe to, you know, the 2.5 year album time mark that seems to be the fucking industry standard. He does what he wants on the time that he wants, because I just think about people who still strangely to equate like somebody like Aesop Rock into this equation with like, but he has for 20 years now had the same sound. Because he clearly has a process that he goes through, which is basically like, if I don't have something to like rap about, I'm not going to rap about it. Like, and there can be like chunks of time that goes by, or he'll put out like a single, and then he's like, I'm cool for a while. And obviously, in somebody like Kendrick's shoes, you are beholden to sort of this like time frame of like, when are you going to put this thing out? Because now there's 10 10, 12 producers like trying to make tracks for him, like what do you want to do, whatever. But I guess my point in saying this is he could do it.
Yeah.
He would just have to sort of walk away from or really try to take, either he would have to take hold or he would have to get top to be like, fucking pump the brakes on whatever I'm doing and like, you do what you're, keep putting albums out, do whatever with the other artists on the label, but like, I'm going to do my own thing.
Right.
Now, whether he would do that or not,
Yeah.
clearly. But I think that is, because time, I mean, good, I maybe this is wrong-headed of me, but like true time-tested sort of art takes time and experience. Like you don't just crank the machine to make things come out.
Agreed,
because otherwise it is going to seem...
So how do you stay genuine and still be successful? I
don't
think
get famous.
That's where all this is getting at, though.
I think is don't get famous.
Like we're saying that being an underground artist or being like a genuine, honest, like underdog, I'll throw that out, is being like kind of under the radar. But you also, as an artist in any caliber and any genre, you want to have some kind of recognition or get some kind of, I don't know, make some kind of presence known about yourself. But at a certain point, you hit this line where, boom, you cross over into the mainstream, you cross over into popular culture, and that suddenly spoils.
Well, I think it
spoils your ability to be genuine or to be honest or to speak from that same perspective that you did before.
Yeah. No, I think that, I mean, really, the only way to do that is just avoid corporate influence, right? I mean, the big business and all that. And I think that aspect of making your art into a manufactured product to sell on a large scale is really what takes away from it. And I think as long as you don't do that, right, like, then you can continue.
Don't get sponsored by Sprite.
Or Applebee's.
Or Applebee's.
Or Nike Cortez's.
Oh, man, yeah. See, because I was trying to think, what kind of, like, corporate sponsorship did Kenny do?
So, we're going to wrap this up because I could go down some sort of weird, like, I think more like societal hole, which is how do you tell people to not take the money and run? Especially, like, let's think about rap and hip hop culture and like the demographic of which that, and like if you're being like cut checks, this is the same as like, I mean, it cuts across the board from like athletics out of college, like kids who are like, you've been trained to be like a football or basketball player. Like, who knows what those kids really wanted to be, but they like get that fat check and like all they know is like, I'm gonna go like dunk the ball, do the thing, like.
Well, and I'm not saying success is bad, right? Like, I mean, I don't think that your art automatically becomes invalid. I guess, like,
right.
But when somebody starts cutting the checks, then you become beholden to.
Yeah, I think it's just more.
It's like new slavery in a weird.
Yeah.
I mean, not to, but let's be real about this. Like, there are people who are pulling the strings and like putting the money out there who there's a hierarchy here. And then what do you do? What do you do?
It's gonna change you. I mean, dude, the thing with these underground or these avant-garde or art rappers or whatever, like anti fucking status quo, whatever little subgenre it is or isn't, like, they're rapping from a perspective that is, I don't know, in like great contrast to the mainstream rap world, which is rapping from the perspective of having fucking 4 Lamborghinis and, $6 million in the bank and shit.
Right.
So even if you're playing it cool and you're avoiding corporate sponsorships, but you're still successful in getting a listenership and selling albums with your like avant-garde rap or your, I don't know, whatever your specialization is, you're successful at that, you're selling albums, you're going to make money. And it's going to change something about your lifestyle, even if you're cool about it. So.
Well, and we've seen that, and I think there's a handful of artists, and I'm not familiar with any rap artists, I don't think, that have done the sort of like removing themselves from what they are experiencing, right? But the Beatles did it, Radiohead did it, Rage Against the Machine did it. Like, there's like you sort of get to a point where I think you pull back, and whether it's an individual or a group or part of a group, right? And I mean,
Are you saying like walk? What exactly? Are you, like walking away from like what you've
Yeah,
not walking
sort
away,
of.
but like kind of just
not like giving up on success, but yeah, washing your hands of this whole experience, like getting to a point where, I mean, if you look at some of these groups and people, like they're making outrageous amounts of money, and life change over 5 to 10 years is pretty insane, and that doesn't happen to most people. And when you get to that point and you recognize, like, oh, you know, the way that I make money is no longer feasible for me because it was, you know, what I thought was very valid art. Like, now I need to remove myself from this and say, can I continue to do what I'm doing, or do I need to change or whatever? Like, that's, yeah, I don't know. I just kind of want to rant about that.
No, dude. I mean,
I feel like we've kind of gone on a rant about all this.
It's just gonna go in a feedback loop like that.
So I feel like maybe we should try to tie this thing up so it's not welcome to our 3-hour.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna end it with this, or at least my part. Considering like what we have talked about, I would suggest, maybe because I've been drinking some beers, but one, we all watch that goddamn Killer Mike show on Netflix and talk about it, because I started watching it. It is not what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be like some sort of like shock bullshit of like, hey, Killer Mike's kind of a famous name. No, he actually like has really like valid things to say, and I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. I can fucking ascribe to a lot of your shit. And I think that it ties into kind of what we're talking about right now, where there are like different economies going on with different priorities and whatever. We could all get back together and talk about that, maybe sort of with a rap-centric idea. But I think that the most important thing in all of this is that without like art rap, underground hip hop, I mean, Murs has said this before on, you know, his show, but without stuff like that, you are not furthering than, like, anybody who listens, you just click on your fucking radio and listen to the hotness right now, anything that's fucking litty, you are really just like listening to things that were pulled out of something that somebody was doing 6 months, a year and a half, 2 years ago, that was unique at that moment and then got sort of snatched up.
Right.
So think about that and then try to maybe like do a little research. Listen to broaden your horizons. There you go. Broaden your horizons. That's how I'm going to end that. Well, this has been a rap roll call.
It's, dude, I don't even know how to make these connections here. Don't take genres or subgenres so seriously. Like things like kind of ebb and flow, and it doesn't, you know, I seem to be making the focus around money, or like when you reach a certain like plateau or peak and how much money you're making, that causes you to cross or skip genres or whatever, or mile markers. But I mean, listen to whatever the fuck you want to listen to.
Yeah.
And if you enjoy it and you feel like you're contributing to a specific community or whatever, I mean, do that shit. I don't know, man.
Oh, I mean, I think that mainstream rap can be this, like, if you really dig into these aspects of the music, like Tim was saying, like, you can kind of trace out these little roots into other artists, and if you follow those rabbit holes, then you can find some really just groundbreaking shit. Not to say that the other stuff isn't, but you don't have to have like what is presented to you be your musical reality. I think that's
right.
That sounds wise enough for me to have that be my end thing. I don't know.
I mean,
I'm just a podcast host on a
You're
video.
just here, yeah. Well, dude, thank you for joining us, our first guest. cheers to that,
Alex.
man.
Yeah.
Thank
Man.
you, Alex.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you guys if you watched this far.
Yeah, if you made it all the way.
So this was Rap Roll Call. Thanks for watching this video. If you like it, go ahead and, fucking like the video, subscribe to our channel.
Hit the bell so you get the
bell,
subscriptions. Yep.
Subscribe, yeah. We're also on Instagram. Don't bother following us on Twitter or Facebook.
Yep.
I've pretty
We've
much given up on
you.
maintaining
Yeah.
that shit. So follow us on Instagram at Rap Roll Call. This guy, follow him and his podcast.
Accidentallyfasting.com, Accidentally Fasting on Instagram. My name's Alex. I'm Langston Books on
He's a writer.
Instagram.
He's an author.
And
Apparently a goddamn musician as well.
Yeah.
goddamn music.
But yeah, check out Alex and check out Rap Roll Call. Accidentally Fasting.
The Illuminati is real.
The Illuminati is real at the Illuminati on Instagram.